What's your name and what do you do for a living?
My name is Chelsea Joyce, and I'm a high school teacher.
Where do you teach?
I teach at Northwest Guilford High School.
What classes do you teach?
I have 3 AP Environmental Science classes and 2 Honors Earth Science classes.
What's your favorite part of being a teacher?
I would have to say the moments when I see that a student actually understands what I'm talking about instead of just like the glazed over look that they get sometimes. Or when I'm talking about something and then one of my students gets excited about it. That's really exciting for me as well.
What's your least favorite part of being a teacher?
Probably the extra hours that nobody actually tells you about in the beginning. You know that there's going to be a lot of time and effort that goes into lesson planning, especially your first year, just because you don't have all this laid out. You haven't done this 5,000 times, so you don't have lesson plans that you know you want to do. So first would be just like all the extra time that goes into it right now for lesson planning, grading. Students don't seem to realize that everything that you do, I have to grade 156 of them. So, time-wise.
How have you changed since becoming a teacher?
I'm a lot more organized. You have to be organized. You can't lose papers. I mean, if you lose a student's paper, you either have to ask them to do it again or you have to figure out something else. So organization has been the biggest thing that has changed for me.
What college did you go to?
I went to the University of North Carolina at Greensboro.
What did you major in?
I was a double major in biology and integrated sciences with a chemistry minor and a biotech concentration.
How did you manage financing in college?
I had 2 different programs I was a part of. First was the Teaching Fellows program, where for every year that you teach, you got a certain amount of money. And then the other was called Project Excel. That was, it's more science-based, but it was still science education. For every year you teach, you also got a certain amount of money.
How did you juggle working and going to school?
Oh, I forgot to say that. Yeah, I had 2 jobs throughout all of college. It wasn't easy. There were moments where I was taking 21 credit hours and I still had 2 jobs and 2 internships. So it was a major time juggle, to be honest. But eventually you get to the point where you have to have your planner, even just for like 1 week, just to figure out what 1 week looks like for you, so you can get what your normal schedule is going to look like, so you can figure out when you have free time, when you can waste time, and so on and so forth.
Do you think working took anything away from your education?
Yes, I do. I did really well in college. I graduated with a really good GPA, but I feel like had I not been working so much or put in so many hours at work, that I could have had an even better GPA. I could have had a 4.0. I know I could have, but I still graduated with honors, so it's not the end of the world.
What honors or medals did you receive in college?
I mean, just the regular, Dean's List and Chancellor's List, but I also got a Student Excellence Award in Integrated Sciences 1 year.
What extra stuff did you have to do in college to become a teacher?
There were different requirements for each thing I was a part of. For just your regular teaching degree, you have to do each year, you have to do an internship. There's about 30 credit hours worth of classes you take on top of your regular major. It's kind of like having a third major, to be honest. Let's see. With Teaching Fellows, we had to do different conferences and get-togethers where we were doing like major discussions and things. And then with Project Excel, we actually had a volunteer extension where we had to do community service and then do a project about it and present it in Washington, D.C.
In what ways is student teaching different from being a real teacher?
In quite a few ways. I feel like in your student teaching, you have a lot more of a crutch, obviously, because you have the teacher you're working with there. But I feel like you start learning how to make relationships with your students, and you start kind of getting a taste of how teaching is like. Now, when you actually start teaching, it's completely different. It's nowhere near the same thing. You don't have somebody there that can back you up if you mess up or anything like that. You don't have the crutch to rely on if you're sick. It's all on you. The show is all on you. So it's completely different. You get a taste of it, but it's not the same thing at all.
Do you feel your college experience adequately prepared you for teaching high school?
Honestly, no, not really. I feel like a lot of the education that I had for education was more fact-based. It wasn't based on methods. They claim it was methods, but it was facts. It wasn't us implementing methods in our classrooms. It wasn't doing anything like that. The most of your initial internships are just observations. You're just observing somebody else doing things, which is important, but I don't feel like that portion of it prepared me at all. Because I've been observing for years. I mean, I've been in school for, 18 years before I actually became a teacher. I've seen it. I know what goes on as a teacher. I pay attention to that. I feel like there needs to be more emphasis on actually implementing the things we're learning instead of just cramming all of these facts about how students learn in your head.
In what ways do you feel teacher training excels?
The biggest thing I felt like I got from my teacher training was a cohort. I gained a lot of friends that are currently in the same situation I am, that are teaching for their first year. And so when we get stressed out, we can talk to each other about that. You have a cohort at your school where you start working, but they are more your cohort they're the people you go to when you need ideas about lesson plans and experience stuff. But sometimes they seem to forget how stressful it is your first year, and you need people that are on the same level as you, that are going through the same things as you. And I feel like by going through the program I went through, I built up a cohort like that.
Do you see yourself continuing to teach in the future?
Mm-hmm. I haven't decided if it's what I want to do with the rest of my life, but I definitely see myself doing it for at least the next 5 years or so.
What
I enjoy
advice
it.
do you have for students preparing to go to college?
Let's see. Don't get caught up in the social stuff, first off. It's fun. You have a lot more freedom and everything, but don't get caught up in it. Because the second you go on academic probation, it's really hard to get back. And it's a lot harder to bring up a bad GPA than to start off with a good one, obviously. But that would be my first thing. Second, I wouldn't stress out in the very beginning knowing exactly what you want to do with your life. Try taking all sorts of different courses. That's what your general education courses are for. It's time for you to figure out what you want to do. And that's when you discover all of it. You're taking classes you've never taken before. And then don't let senioritis get to you. Senioritis actually kicks in a lot earlier in college than most students think it does. Don't let it get to you. You have to force yourself to study. If you don't, then you will get behind. And you can't catch up like you did in high school. It doesn't work like that. A lot of your college classes are just test-based. You'll have 3 tests or 2 tests, and that's your entire grade. And if you don't do well on the first one, well, that's half your grade already. You can't bring it back up. So just paying attention to things in the beginning and not slacking would be what I would suggest.